There is a rooftop somewhere above the city where the noise goes quiet, where the satellites no longer speak, and the wind forgets what it was chasing. A woman stands there, barefoot on warm concrete, wrapped in a silk blouse she didn't plan to wear, watching the moon like it's the first time she's ever seen it. Not admired. Seen. Her breath doesn't match the rhythm of the lights below. Her heartbeat does not belong to the city anymore. She looks up, and it looks back. They say the moon doesn't shine. It reflects. But what if that's not true? What if the light we see is not a reflection, but a language? A signal? A veil? Tonight, it's too perfect, too symmetrical. The shadows fall exactly where they should, as if someone rehearsed them. Her face is softly illuminated, but the light doesn't warm. It highlights, isolates, cuts. A spotlight with no stage. On that rooftop, something is wrong with the geometry. The lines of buildings bend ever so slightly, as if leaning toward the sky. Her silhouette, sharp against the horizon, begins to split at the edges. Just a glitch in the eye, maybe. Just a pulse in the lens. But it doesn't go away. The moon's glow flickers for a moment, just once, like a skipping reel of film. She doesn't flinch. She's seen that before, but only in dreams. There is a theory that beauty is the result of compression, that when the mind can't process chaos, it selects a pattern, reduces noise to signal, curves into symmetry, faces into gods. We see the moon every night and call it beautiful. But what if that's not perception? What if it's obedience? NNSHE blinks, and something changes. The moon doesn't vanish, but something behind it leans forward. A shimmer, a fold, a subtle misalignment of surface and source. It's still the same shape, still the same texture. But the glow is off. It's not a reflection, it's a transmission, not illumination, instruction. Below her, the streets begin to glow with a different light. Colder, flatter, as if reality is being overwritten by some higher exposure setting. The moon above pulses, and her body feels it before her mind does. The tiniest spike of vertigo, like her organs recalibrated without permission. This isn't fear. This is displacement, a shift in how the world breathes. NNSHE steps forward. The rooftop doesn't move, but the stars do, imperceptibly, like pixels dragged across a screen. And in that moment, the lie reveals itself. Not as an announcement, not as a scream, but as silence. The kind that lingers after something vital has been edited out. And there is no message. There is no decoder. Only the knowing. NNTHE moon doesn't need to lie. NNTHE light does it for her. They taught us to trust what we see. They built a world around it. Images, screens, measurements, lines. Look, they said, the moon is there. So we did. We looked, and we called it real. We built religions on its cycles, poems on its glow, calendars on its shadow. But there's a difference between seeing and perceiving. Between looking and being seen. NNSHE walks along a quiet street just before dawn, where the sodium lamps flicker and the asphalt reflects the last breath of night. Above her, the moon hangs like a coin that never falls. Its face is frozen, its craters sharp, but the light it casts doesn't land right. It slides like oil on water. She pauses, tilts her head. For a second, it's not the moon she sees. It's something dressed as the moon, something wearing it like a mask. NNTHE human eye evolved under that glow. Our pupils dilate for it. Our bodies time themselves to it. Menstrual cycles sync with its pull. Criminal behavior spikes under its rise. Insects go blind chasing it. Wolves don't howl at it. They orient themselves. The moon is not just above us. It's in us. It calibrates the darkness. It tells the body when to rest, when to bleed, when to hide. But what if that signal was never natural? NNSHE steps onto a bridge that arches over a silent train yard, the rails gleaming with residual moonlight. Her fingers graze the metal railing. Cold. Too cold for June. The temperature doesn't match the season, it matches the phase. There's something wrong with the script. She looks up again. The moon hasn't moved, but the clouds around it have paused, as if the sky is buffering, as if reality is waiting for confirmation. There's a phenomenon in neuroscience called perceptual filling in. When the eye encounters a blind spot, the brain fabricates what should be there, not based on truth, but on expectation. It fills the void with assumption, which means, in a sense, we're always hallucinating. Reality is just a high-functioning guess. And the moon, that perfect white circle, might be our most stable hallucination of all. And imagine placing a mirror in the sky. One that doesn't just reflect light, but rewrites it. Filters what reaches us. Colors are nights, our myths, our thresholds of fear. The moon controls not just the tides, but the stories we allow ourselves to believe. It shows just enough to be trusted, but never enough to be known. And NSHE walks further. The city behind her fades into silhouettes. Ahead, a hillside, overgrown, ancient. She climbs, each step quieter than the last, as if the earth is cushioning her movement, as if it too is holding its breath. And then she stops. At the top, alone with the horizon. The moon is enormous now, closer. Not physically, but perceptually. The way something feels bigger when it's watching. And what if the moon isn't a companion? What if it's an observer? Not alive, but aware. Not sentient, but encoded. What if it was placed, not formed? Set into orbit not by physics, but by intention. We accept that the moon stabilizes Earth's wobble, regulates climate, makes life possible. But that's exactly what an engineered object would be designed to do. NSHE removes a small object from her pocket. A camera. Old, analog. She clicks the shutter. The frame captures the moon. But when she checks the photo, there's nothing there. Just the hillside. Just the sky. As if the light never touched the film. As if the moon doesn't project, but subtracts. And they say the moon rings like a bell when struck. During seismic experiments, it vibrated for hours as if hollow, as if resonant. Engineers would call that an acoustic chamber. Architects would call it intentional. NSHE breathes, not heavily, slowly. The kind of breath you take before stepping into cold water. She's not afraid. She's listening, not for sound, but for the absence of it. The kind that precedes a change. N and N, because something doesn't add up. And it hasn't for a very long time. Not the math, not the mechanics, but the feeling. That quiet suspicion that we've been circling something. Not just gravitationally, but psychologically. That the moon is not a thing, but a question. And the question is not, what is it? Nits, why is it still watching? There is a number that slips through casual understanding. 17,000. That's how many gallons of water the moon moves every single second through Earth's tides. Not metaphorically, physically. 17,000 Niagara Falls, pulled and released, without touching a drop, not by force, by rhythm. A choreography written in gravitational silence. The moon does not command the oceans. It whispers, and they respond. NSHE sits at the edge of a concrete pier, bare legs over dark water, toes brushing mist. Her hand traces the condensation on the surface of a thermos, watching how the fog moves, then disappears. The sea rises. Not visibly, but undeniably. The air is charged, not with electricity, but with suggestion. A sense that the water remembers something we do not. We're told the moon was born from a collision. Earth, struck by a Mars-sized body, ejecting molten debris that formed our satellite. But simulations strain to make this math work. The chemical fingerprint of the moon is too similar to Earth. The ratios too exact. Its orbit, its mass, its distance, all sit on a razor's edge. Tilted even slightly, and tides would vanish. Seasons would collapse. Life would never have stabilized. It is either the most miraculous accident in planetary history, or it was placed with obscene precision. NSHE looks at the horizon. where the sea meets the curve of the world. Somewhere out there, the moon is reflected. But it's not a reflection she's waiting for. It's timing. Because the moon doesn't just reflect sunlight. It modulates time itself. Biological clocks, crop germination, sleep cycles. There are coral species that spawn only under full moonlight. Fish that migrate based on its phase. No language, no awareness. Just response. This is not coincidence. This is programming. NNSHE breathes in, and for a moment, time slows. Not metaphorically, physiologically. Her heartbeat aligns with the waves. Her inner ear registers something beyond balance. A pull. Not external, but inside the chest. The moon is not distant. It's intimate. Not a rock in the sky. A pulse in the bloodstream. There is a crater on the moon's far side, South Pole Aitken. It's over 2,500 kilometers wide, deeper than Everest is tall. We've never fully seen it with human eyes. It's always facing away, always hidden. Some suggest it holds ice. Others, relics. Some whisper it holds nothing at all, except the memory of impact so ancient, time itself fractured. The moon is a scar we mistake for a lamp. NNSHE rises, the hem of her skirt damp, and walks inland, past dunes. Past the remains of rusted signs and structures long claimed by wind. The moon follows, not above, but around. Every step she takes is mirrored by its silent arc. And in that movement, a thought begins to take shape. What if the moon is not orbiting Earth? What if Earth is orbiting it? Not gravitationally, but behaviorally, structurally, psychologically. There's a pattern in machine learning called backpropagation, where an output is fed backward into the system to adjust its internal parameters. What if the moon acts the same, not as a cause, but as a calibrator? What if our actions, our dreams, our emotional tides are not inspired by the moon, but tuned by it? NNSHE enters a weathered building, an old planetarium. Dust floats in beams of artificial light. She presses a button on a cracked console. Above her, the mechanical sky begins to rotate. A projection of stars and orbits. Earth. The moon. Perfect ellipses. But something's wrong. The moon's path isn't stable. It jerks. It pauses. Then loops, as if caught in a glitch. As if the program couldn't finish rendering, and then the projection freezes. The moon. Centered. Unmoving. The rest of the sky swirls around it. NNSHE stands beneath that fixed image, lit in artificial white. The moon, projected, but colder than ever. And suddenly, it doesn't feel like a celestial object anymore. It feels like a lock, a pressure point in the system, a frozen interface. And there's an idea in physics that observation changes outcome, that to measure something is to affect it. But what if the inverse is true? What if being observed shapes us? What if the moon isn't just something we look at, but something that changes us by looking back? NTHE oceans move. The blood flows. The silence deepens. NNTHE mechanism is flawless. NNBUT, the intention is not. There is a moment, subtle and unmarked, when a system stops reflecting what it was and begins becoming something else. Not by breaking, by bending, by repurposing itself from within. The moon, they say, has always been there. But the records don't agree. Some ancient cultures have myths from before the moon. Tales of a time when the night sky was dark, and dreams moved differently. NNSHE walks through a valley where radio signals die. No towers, no echoes, just stone and wind. Her boots crush dry leaves that no longer remember their shape. The moon above is brilliant, too brilliant, overexposed, like an image burned into a screen. She doesn't look away, not anymore. She wants to see it, not just as it is, but as it might have been before we gave it meaning. There are indigenous legends, Zulu, Tiwanaku, Maori, that speak of a sky without the moon, of its sudden arrival, of a great light that emerged one night and never left. These are dismissed as mythology, as symbolic cosmology. But if consciousness is a story we tell ourselves, then symbols are not fictions. They're fingerprints, clues embedded in narrative. And the moon, perhaps, was not born from Earth's trauma, but fell into our sky like a Trojan signal. A presence no one invited, but everyone had to adapt to. NNSHE kneels beside a stream, watching how the water curves around stone. The flow shifts rhythmically, not to the wind, but to something deeper. A cadence that matches the pulse in her wrists, tidal patterns in miniature. It's all syncing. And the strange thing is, it feels good. Reassuring, like falling asleep to a familiar hum. But that's what makes it dangerous, because comfort is the perfect camouflage. They say the moon always shows us the same face, that it rotates in perfect resonance with its orbit, a phenomenon called synchronous rotation. But what if that's not physics? What if that's curation? A controlled loop designed to pacify. Familiarity as anesthesia. Predictability as design. The dark side isn't hidden by chance. It's hidden because something made sure it would be. NNSHE lifts a small piece of metal from the ground, part of an old weather vane, its edge warped, pointing nowhere. She holds it up. The moon reflects off its surface, but the reflection splits. Two images. One static. One flickering, as if one is now, and the other is what should have been. There's a pattern in evolution. When organisms sense a change in their environment, they adapt. But when the change is subtle, too slow, too silent, they don't evolve. They comply. And what if that's what we've done with the moon? Not evolved under its light, but submitted to it, accepted its rhythm, internalized its gaze. NNSHE walks again, past the remains of a forgotten observatory. The lenses are cracked, the dome rusted, but one screen still glows. Faint green text pulsing on black glass. It repeats a line. Lunar feed active, signal stable. Over and over. Nothing else. No data. No error. Just affirmation. As if the system isn't failing. It's fulfilling. NNTHE moon doesn't ask questions. It doesn't change. It doesn't blink. But everything under it does. And maybe that's the point. NNSHE stands still. The wind carries the sound of waves, even though the sea is miles away. The moon overhead is unmoving, yet she feels motion, not in the ground. In her perception, a tilt, a frame shift, like someone rotated the canvas of her reality by 1 degree. NNWE. Keep looking for answers in light. NNBUT. Maybe it was never about the light. Maybe it was about the way we followed it. There are places in the body that respond before thought arrives. The skin, the lungs, the back of the neck. Places where language hasn't colonized sensation. That's where the moon enters. Not through vision, through texture, through pressure, through the quiet contract between biology and pattern. She feels it now, not as a symbol, but as a presence, pressing gently on her shoulder blades. A gravity without touch. NNSHE lies on a rooftop mattress, staring upward, where the clouds breathe across the stars in slow, uncertain waves. The moon is framed between two rusted antennas, like a signal paused mid-broadcast. Around her, the city has dissolved into humming. Neon and sirens below. The sky above, blank and perfect, but it's the in-between that holds her, that zone where the world stops performing, where it just listens. There's a species of coral that spawns exactly once a year, coordinated across hundreds of kilometers, not by temperature, not by tides, but by moonlight. Not just brightness, wavelength. The moon tells them when, and they obey. It's not knowledge, it's embodiment. This is not a fact. It's a behavior. And we are not different. NNSHE rolls onto her side. Her arm leaves a warm imprint on the sheet. For a moment, she imagines the moon doing the same to Earth, pressing its curve into soil, into bone, into collective sleep, not causing it, shaping it, not pulling tides, pulling permission, giving gravity a tempo. In NWE talk about the moon in terms of distance, 384,400 kilometers. But that's irrelevant. The real distance is conceptual. We think it is out there, but its effects are in here. Every cycle, every madness, every silence under full light is the body rehearsing something older than memory. The moon is not an object. It's a participation. Villier and Adimad.she moves through the apartment now, slowly. Lights off. Each footstep soft. The walls glow faintly from the window. Her shadow follows her, hesitant, as if questioning its own outline. In the bathroom mirror, the moon is caught in reflection, tangled between her cheek and the tile behind her. For a moment, it looks like it's inside the mirror, like she's the surface it's reflecting from. There's a theory in chronobiology. If you remove a human from natural light cycles entirely, no sun, no moon, no clocks, the body still follows an internal rhythm. But slightly off, slightly wrong, like a song with a missing beat. Over weeks, the body drifts. Sleep disorders arise. Hormones spiral. Emotions fray. The body doesn't just respond to cycles. It needs them. And the moon has been the metronome for millennia. But what if it's not keeping time? What if it's rewriting it? NNSHE sits on the floor now, tracing her finger across the wood. Patterns of light shift over her shoulder. Moonlight moves, but not in a straight line. It bends around objects, around corners, around assumptions. It's gentle, always, but that's what makes it dangerous. Aggression provokes reaction. Softness slides under the threshold. Ansheng. There are lunar rhythms in human conception rates, in hospitalization spikes, in stock market volatility. Patterns too consistent to ignore, but too soft to isolate. The moon isn't a switch, it's a suggestion, a subtle recalibration of thresholds. When we sleep, when we crave, when we feel, NNSHE closes her eyes. And even in darkness, she can feel where it is, NNNOT like direction, more like intention, a pull behind the ribs, a whisper between vertebrae. It's not mystical, it's mechanical. But that doesn't make it less intimate. It makes it more so. NNWE think the moon is passive. We romanticize its stillness, its glow. But maybe that's projection. Maybe the moon is not passive at all. Just patient. Just consistent. The perfect architecture of subtle change, designed to never be noticed directly. Only felt, only obeyed. NNSHE opens the window. Cold air rushes in. Somewhere in the distance, a train passes. She hears it before the wind carries it away. She doesn't speak. Her breath curls upward. And the moon, untouched, unblinking, holds NNNOTA God, NNNOTA machine, and something in between. There is a kind of intimacy in repetition, a trust we place not in explanation, but in return. The moon has always returned. Same shape, same phase, same path. And in that return, we've built stories, cycles, calendars, the illusion of certainty. But maybe what we're trusting isn't the moon. It's our need for rhythm. Maybe what's sacred isn't what rises, but how much of ourselves we pour into watching. NNSHE walks through a museum after hours, its lights dimmed, displays asleep. Her steps echo across polished floors. There's a room of ancient tools, compasses, sextants, lunar charts drawn by hand. She lingers beside one, a silvered astrolabe, etched with symbols not meant to be read, only followed. The moon's position is engraved at its center, as if it were the axis of meaning. She runs her finger along the metal. It's cold, not with temperature, with distance. Not physical, emotional then. There's a crater on the moon's surface, Tycho, whose rays stretch hundreds of kilometers across the regolith. It looks like an eye, scarred by a single sudden violence. And we've named it, labeled it, stored it in data. But none of that tells us what it felt like when it formed. The heat, the soundlessness of the impact, the memory etched in dust. We interact with the moon the way we interact with trauma, cataloging it without ever stepping inside. NNSHE finds an exhibit, old photographs of Apollo missions, footprints in powder, flags, dust suspended in vacuum. One photo shows Earth, distant, framed in the moon's sky. She looks at it for a long time, longer than she should. Not at Earth. At the edge of the moon, the curve of it, the shadow. There's something there, not visible, felt. A silence that knows more than it shows. NNWE say the moon is lifeless. But that's just another word for unresponsive. Yet it responds. In tides. In sleep. In the thin layer of logic between impulse and choice. It doesn't act, but it affects. And maybe that's its power. It doesn't need to move. It only needs to be present. NNSHE sits on a bench. Light from a nearby exit sign glows weakly across her face. In her hands, a phone. She opens a sleep tracking app. The data shows something strange. Every full moon without fail, her REM cycles shorten, her movements increase, her dreams fragment. Not once, every month. The body remembers what the mind doesn't. The numbers don't explain it. They translate it. The way a fever translates infection into sweat, NNSHE doesn't need proof. She needs pattern. And the pattern is clear. Something above is writing into the body below. Not metaphorically, biochemically. The moon leaves fingerprints in hormone shifts, in serotonin levels, in childbirth timing. It doesn't force. It coaxes, and there's a phenomenon called entrainment, when two oscillating systems begin to synchronize. Pendulum clocks on the same wall eventually tick in unison. Heartbeats match in long embraces. Fireflies blink together when gathered in enough number. The moon doesn't command us, it entrains us. The body falls into step, not from subjugation, from recognition. A memory older than species, a rhythm older than light. NNSHE walks back through the hall. The exhibits remain still, but something follows her now, not physically, in tone, in pressure. The sense that nothing is inert, that everything under the moon is quietly responding. Somewhere inside her, the numbers continue, silently counting. The 29.5-day rhythm. The cascade of neural signals timed to nightfall. The subtle rise in anxiety, in melancholy, in tenderness. Not her emotions, just settings being nudged, not at N. This isn't supernatural. It's structural. A kind of architecture we can't step outside of because we're built into it. The moon isn't causing feelings. It's tuning them. NNSHE steps outside again. The sky is clear. The moon is near zenith now. Direct, overhead, watching without expression. Her hands in her pockets. Her eyes half closed. And she wonders, not for the first time, if maybe we were never meant to understand the moon. Only to feel it, because the more we measure it, the less we see it. And the more we see it, the more we realize we were never outside its influence. NWE were inside its intention. There is a final kind of knowing, the kind that arrives without sound. It doesn't declare itself. It settles, like mist inside the lungs. You don't recognize it as knowledge at first, only as the absence of doubt. As something that was always there, waiting for your attention to become still enough to notice. NNSHE stands at the edge of a dry salt flat. The air is motionless. The moon hangs low, impossibly large, as if it drifted closer not through space, but through meaning. The landscape around her is white, crystalline, unbroken, like the memory of water, frozen in place. She raises her hand. Her shadow responds, delayed by a fraction of a breath, as if the light has become too heavy to carry itself at speed. They tell us the moon is tidally locked, one side forever hidden. But that's not quite true. Over time, we see slightly more than half, a slow oscillation called libration. It rocks like a cradle, showing us glimpses of the far side. Not enough to map, just enough to suggest, to tease, to remind us that even locked bodies can move, if watched long enough. NNSHE kneels. Her fingertips press into the salt crust. Beneath it, silence. No echo, no insects, no wind. Just the moon above and the outline of her own breath, curling in the cold. If the moon is a lie, it's not malicious. It's protective, not deception for power, but for preservation. Like a veil drawn over something we're not ready to see. Or maybe, something that was never ours to claim. There is a thought she cannot unthink now. What if the moon is dreaming of us? Not in the poetic sense, in the architectural sense. What if we are not being watched, but being rendered? Not observed, but held inside a continuity created by its presence. The moon as container, as interface, as the border between what we know and what won't let us go. NNSHE closes her eyes, and for the first time, she doesn't try to interpret the light. She lets it in. No questions, no frameworks, just sensation, the weight of stillness, the softness of shadow, the quiet awareness that she's part of something vast and not central to it. And somewhere in deep space, simulations run. Attempts to model planetary formation, orbital stability, the miracle of habitability. Most fail. Earth, without the moon, is a world of chaos, axis unstable, climate wild, life improbable. The moon isn't an ornament, it's a condition, not a byproduct, a precondition. NNSHE opens her eyes. The salt flat is glowing now, not from above, from within. Moonlight has soaked into it, igniting the crystal surface with a light that feels internal, like the world is remembering something it never got to say. She stands, slowly. The light doesn't change, but her posture does. No longer seeking answers, just standing in the fact of it. What if consciousness was never ours to begin with? What if it arrived, quietly, inside rhythms we didn't write? What if the moon wasn't a reflection of the sun, but of us? NSHE breathes out. There is no music. There is no ending. There is only the slow dissolve of certainty. NTHE moon remains. And we begin again, in its light.